So now, as we get into chapter 5, we find that Nick and Gatsby are arranging for Daisy to come together now rather than through Miss Baker, through Nick's girlfriend. So Gatsby and Nick arrange the time and the date together that for Daisy to come, and Gatsby seems to want everything to be perfect for her arrival, including Nick's house actually. So he suggests that Nick's lawn needs to be mowed. He doesn't want the lawn to be so long, so he actually arranges for his own gardener to come over and cut the grass at Nick's place that Nick is renting. During this time, he also suggests to Nick that he may have some work for Nick if Nick is interested on the side, but it has to be confidential, is the way that Gatsby puts it. And Nick seems to dislike the idea of this confidential work and declines, despite Gatsby's insistence. Then Nick arranges with Daisy to come to his place, and he makes very specific instructions for Daisy not to bring Tom, which obviously wouldn't be a good thing because secretly he's obviously arranging this meeting between Gatsby and Daisy. um, on the day that Daisy is to arrive, Gatsby comes over and sort of inspects things, but he's clearly very nervous. And this is quite clear to Nick as well. And he wants everything to be perfect. The food and obviously he already had the lawn mowed and things like this. So he's very concerned about everything being perfect, and he's very nervous. When Daisy arrives, just before Daisy arrives, Gatsby suggests that well, maybe she's not coming, and he's going to head back to his house. Although this is a couple of minutes before she's even scheduled to arrive, and Nick gets him to calm down and stay, and they hear the vehicle come in. They hear Daisy's vehicle come in. So Nick goes out to greet her, and he asks her to send away her chauffeur, which she does. And she makes a little one-off comment, "Are you in love with me?" or something to Nick. I think in jest, of course, but um, Nick gets Daisy to come inside, and um, and after a little bit of some confusion because it seems like Gatsby may have been trying to sneak away. Um, Gatsby does eventually surprise Daisy with his presence, so he's there, and they get into they all three of them eventually get into a very nervous and awkward conversation. Eventually, Nick goes outside to leave them to themselves um, in order to carry on the conversation. Because at one point, even Gatsby had come out with Nick and tried to sort of remove himself from the situation, and Nick had gotten him to go back in. He said, "That's very rude of you to leave her." And Nick goes outside to ensure, I guess, that Gatsby and Daisy will have their time together. When Nick comes back in after giving them some time to themselves, um, Gatsby's mood has greatly improved, and he seems excited even. And Daisy seems to be happy as well, though she's crying. So it seems like she's crying some happy tears actually. Um, and Nick informs them basically that it had been raining. I forgot to mention that earlier. It had been raining outside, and Nick mentions to them that the rain has stopped. And so Gatsby takes Daisy outside and they can see Gatsby's house obviously from Nick's place, and Daisy is quite impressed with the size and of the house and how nice it looks from the outside. And he then takes both Nick and Daisy to his house. And during this time, Gatsby lets it slip that he may not. He doesn't say it that he wasn't truthful, but he lets slip that some information that kind of shows that he was not all that truthful about his money, because he's talking about how he earned his money now, and Nick says to him, "But wait a minute, you said that you inherited your money." And he says, "Oh yes, but he lost it during the panic." Now, the panic he's referring to is probably one of the recessions that happened in the 1900s, the early 1900s, the 19 teens, I guess. Um, Probably referring to the one that happened right after the war, is my assumption. That he claims to have lost his money in. Um, but in any case, when he says panic, he's referring to a recession, basically. Um, and now he says that he earned his money back through the oil and drug business. Now, I should mention also that during this time, the drug business was largely unregulated. In fact, it wasn't, most drugs had just kind of recently come into availability, and they were not, and most of them were not illicit by the time of this writing of The Great Gatsby. Uh, so this would not have been something at the time that could have potentially even been illicit, illegal. And so he's basically saying, well, I earned my money through oil and drugs, which is legal, right? Is essentially what he's pointing to. Now, Gatsby shows both Daisy and Nick through his quite opulent house. We've already sort of gathered that the house was quite opulent, but now Nick is getting to see all of these rooms, uh, where not just Gatsby sleeps, but obviously his servants as well sleep here. And in fact, at some point he even calls on one of his servants who was asleep. Um, and he Gatsby mentions, which seems to have been a selling point for the house for him, mentions that uh, he can see Daisy's house from across the water, right? So he lives in West Egg, obviously. Daisy lives in East Egg, but he can kind of see across the way. They can't see it that well at the time being because it has just rained, and there's a mist and whatnot, so it's not easy to see. But he points out that he can see her house from across the way. So in some ways, he's sort of spying on her, and that seems to be a reason why he's bought this house. Um, and I mentioned that Gatsby at some point wakes up a servant, and this is the time that he does that. He wakes up the servant to ask him to play the piano. Now, the servant seems to be disgusted by the idea and says, "I'm out of practice." And he says, "Oh, come on, old sport," and convinces the servant to play the piano, which he does for apparently some time, because they go through several songs and whatnot. But then Nick decides that it's time for him to leave, and he gets up and says his goodbyes. But at that time, both Gatsby and Daisy seem to be just enamored with one another, and sort of out of the moment. They sort of acknowledge that he's leaving, but not exactly. And he ends up heading out into the. Apparently, the rain has started again. Heads out into the rain, it seems like going back to his place, and that's how chapter 5 ends. So I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope to see you again for chapter 6.